Our retaliation is going to be a lot more surgical than that. I have proposed a 100% tariff on all Teslas.
Analysts say the cost for car makers could far exceed just 25%.
Canada is making big moves in the electric vehicle market, and it's turning everything upside down. Trade tensions with the US have pushed Canada to rethink its strategy and build new global partnerships. These changes are setting the stage for a major shift in who leads the EV industry.
US President Donald Trump has followed through on his tariff threats. He has signed an order to levy 25% tariffs on imports from Canada and Mexico.
The US slapped a 25% tariff on Canadian goods in February 2025, claiming it was a matter of national security. This was a sharp blow to a key ally that have shaken them to the core.
Canada will be responding to the US trade action with 25% tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods.
But Canada wasn't about to let it slide. They fired back with their own 25% tariff on over 30 US-made electric vehicle models. And this abrupt response has sent shockwaves through the EV industry, disrupting markets and forcing both nations to face the consequences of their escalating trade war.
His close relationship with Donald Trump appears to be hurting Tesla's car sales, which were down 17% last year in Australia. And they dropped by more than 30% last month.
Canada's tariffs hit some of the biggest names in the EV game, like the Ford F-150 Lightning and Tesla's US-made models. Overnight, prices for these vehicles in Canada shot up, leaving consumers shell out extra cash for American-made EVs or look elsewhere. And seeking for new options is what they opted. With over 48 models from South Korea, Germany, and Japan ready to step in, Canadian buyers quickly turned to brands like Hyundai and Kia. The Hyundai Ioniq 5 and Kia EV6 in particular became instant favorites.
Tesla sales in Europe have taken huge hits recently, down 40 or 50% or more in the largest markets in Europe.
While Tesla's sales are crashing in Canada and Europe since the other electric vehicles are affordable, reliable, and, most importantly, free from the chaos of a tariff war.
Our retaliation is going to be a lot more surgical than that. I have proposed a 100% tariff on all Teslas.
For US automakers, the impact is huge. Ford and Tesla, longtime market leaders in Canada, suddenly saw their shares start to slip. And here's the problem. Once buyers find a brand they like, they tend to stick with it. So, what's stopping Canadians from making this shift permanent? For Ford and Tesla, that's a question with no easy answers.
Since vehicles go back and forth across the border multiple times during the manufacturing process, analysts say the cost for car makers could far exceed just 25%.
But what's really at risk here is the balance of power in North America's auto industry. Canada's retaliation is a full-blown strategy that will cost more than 25% tariff as vehicles go back and forth in both countries during manufacturing. By targeting EVs, they've put pressure on one of the US's most innovative and rapidly growing sectors. The question is, how will the US respond? And can North America's EV industry survive this war intact? Let's talk about the impact. The EV industry in North America is facing unprecedented challenges, and tariffs are at the heart of it.
Doing this will hurt America really badly.
The US-Canada tariff war has left manufacturers scrambling to keep production costs under control. For companies like Ford and General Motors, the increased duties on essential imports and exports are pushing operational budgets to the brink. Canada's retaliatory tariffs on US-built EVs, including flagship models like the Tesla Model Y and Ford F-150 Lightning, further strained an already fragile production ecosystem.
I'm afraid for both sides, for my workers, for the workers in the United States, but it's devastating. It'll devastate us.
But tariffs are just one piece of the puzzle. Supply chains across North America, deeply interconnected for decades, are now experiencing severe disruptions. Take battery production, for instance, a cornerstone of the EV industry. materials like cobalt, lithium, and nickel, already in short supply globally, are harder to source when trade routes between Canada and the US are caught in bureaucratic and financial gridlock.
China has announced a ban on exports to the United States of critical materials, including gallium, germanium, and antimony.
The US trusts. As tensions with China have added another layer of trouble for the EV industry. Export bans on critical materials like tungsten and rare earth metals, including gallium, have disrupted production.
These materials, essential for semiconductors, military equipment, and renewable technologies, fall under dual-use items with civilian and defense applications.
These resources are essential for EV batteries, semiconductors, and other key components. Without them, the industry faces serious slowdowns. Meanwhile, Europe and Asia are stepping up. Countries like Germany and South Korea are filling the gap, meeting global demand and pushing the boundaries of innovation. Brands like Hyundai and Volkswagen are introducing new models with advanced technology, competitive prices, and steady supply chains. The takeaway? North America's internal struggles could cost it the EV race.
Kia EV6 saw a double-digit growth in sales.
In Canada, the shift is already visible. Non-American EV brands are thriving. Volkswagen, Hyundai, and Kia are taking over significant market share by offering affordable, readily available options. The Kia EV6 has seen record sales in early 2025, while Hyundai's Ioniq 5 remains a top choice in the mid-range category. These aren't just alternatives anymore, they're quickly becoming Canadian favorites.
Any tariffs on Canada will mean higher prices for Americans and will cost American jobs.
For US automakers, the consequences are dire. Losing a key market like Canada means reduced economies of scale, making it harder to keep prices competitive back home. And the results include higher costs for US consumers and a potential long-term erosion of trust in American EV brands. Canada is sitting on a treasure trove of lithium, copper, and rare earth elements. These are the lifeblood of the EV industry. Without them, there are no batteries, no motors, and certainly no sleek Teslas cruising down the highway. These minerals are still mostly untapped, but Canada isn't just sitting around admiring its potential. Mining and refining projects are being fast-tracked like never before. Think of it as the EV industry's version of speed dating, with a lot more heavy machinery. From lithium-rich deposits in Quebec to copper reserves in British Columbia, Canada is putting its foot on the gas on becoming a key player in the EV supply chain.
The broader the tariffs, the worse it's going to be for the world economy. If he levies tariffs on every country in the world, that's more harmful than just singling out a few countries.
The US is heavily reliant on these Canadian minerals, and while that might sound like a cozy neighborly arrangement, it's more like an awkward dinner party. The US wants these minerals, but doesn't seem too keen on playing nice to get them. Tariffs, trade wars, and geopolitical bickering aren't exactly conducive to building a harmonious EV ecosystem.
There will be production stoppages at plants across North America as these supply chains are turned on their head.
So, what's at stake? Well, if Canada and the US can't figure out how to cooperate, North America risks falling way behind. China already dominates the global supply chain for EV components, and Europe is racing ahead with its own production capabilities. If the US and Canada keep squabbling, they might as well hand over the keys to the EV kingdom. Now let's get to the showdown. Canada versus the US. Who's going to come out on top? Canada is betting big on self-reliance, doubling down on mining, refining, and global partnerships. They're carving out deals with Europe and Asia, positioning themselves as a go-to supplier for the EV revolution. It's bold, it's ambitious, and frankly, it's kinda genius.
I cannot for the life of me figure out why you would impose and levy a tariff, which is usually levered at an adversary at best, if not an enemy, on our best ally.
Meanwhile, the US is stuck in a bit of a dilemma as the economists are opposing this move too. Do they continue with protectionist policies and risk alienating allies like Canada? Or do they play ball and work toward a cooperative North American EV ecosystem? Here's the question: will Canada's gamble pay off? Or will the US find a way to regain its footing in the EV market? Drop your theories in the comments because this story is far from over. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and stick around for more deep discussion into the wild world of global trade and industry.